Let me ask you something. Have you ever been hugged by a man and felt confused afterward, not because the hug was bad, but because it felt different? Tight, lingering, or maybe distant and quick. Here's the truth most people never tell you. A man's hug often reveals more than his words ever will. If you understand how he hugs you, you'll understand exactly what he's feeling inside, and whether his emotions are real or just comfortable. A tight, lingering hug is never just a hug. It is a moment where words become unnecessary and emotions speak through silence. When a man holds you close and doesn't rush to let go, he is doing something deeply vulnerable, even if he doesn't realize it himself. In that moment, he is choosing presence over distance, connection over control. He is saying, without speaking, "Stay here with me a little longer." Men are often taught to be composed, guarded, and self-sufficient. From a young age, many learn that expressing emotions openly can feel unsafe or uncomfortable. Because of this, physical closeness becomes one of the few spaces where they allow themselves to feel without explanation. A tight hug is not about strength, it's about surrender. It's about allowing someone else into their emotional world, even briefly. When a hug lingers, it usually means he feels emotionally grounded with you. He isn't just reacting to attraction or habit, he's responding to comfort. Your presence calms something inside him. The longer hold suggests that being close to you gives him relief, like a quiet pause from the pressure he carries. It's often in these silent seconds that he feels most understood. A lingering hug can also reveal trust. Trust doesn't always show up as grand gestures or dramatic confessions. Sometimes it appears in stillness. When he doesn't pull away quickly, it means he doesn't feel the need to protect himself from you. He's not bracing for judgment or rejection. Instead, he's allowing himself to soften, to be held as much emotionally as physically. There is also reassurance in a tight hug. It can be a way of grounding himself, of reminding his body that he is safe, connected, and not alone. If his arms wrap around you firmly, it often reflects a desire to protect the connection, not possess it. It's instinctive, not strategic. He isn't calculating how it looks or what it means. He's simply responding to how it feels. Sometimes a lingering hug happens when a man struggles to articulate his emotions. He may not know how to say, "You matter to me," or "I feel close to you," or even "I'm afraid of losing this." Instead, his body speaks for him. The extra second, the deeper breath, the reluctance to let go, all of it carries meaning that words often fail to deliver. However, what makes a tight hug truly significant is consistency. Anyone can hug tightly once. But when it happens naturally, repeatedly, without being forced or exaggerated, it reflects genuine emotional availability. It shows that closeness with you feels natural to him, not overwhelming or inconvenient. A lingering hug is also about presence. In that moment, he is not distracted, rushed, or halfway out the door. He is there, fully, and presence is one of the clearest signs of emotional investment. It means you have his attention not because you demanded it, but because he chose to give it. In the end, a tight, lingering hug is not a promise of forever, but it is a glimpse of truth. It reveals what he feels when no one is asking him to perform, explain, or impress. It shows where his heart rests when his guard is down. And often, if you pay close attention, that hug will tell you far more than any words ever could. A protective hug carries a quiet strength that goes far beyond physical closeness. When a man wraps his arms around you in a way that feels steady, grounded, and secure, he isn't just touching you, he's creating a space where you can relax, exhale, and feel held not only by his body, but by his intention. This kind of hug is rarely rushed and never careless. It comes from a place of awareness, where he is tuned in to you and to what you might need in that moment. Protective hugs often reveal a man's instinct to care. This instinct isn't about control or ownership, it's about responsibility. When he holds you close with his arms firm and his posture stable, he is subconsciously communicating that he wants to be someone you can lean on. It's his way of saying, "I've got you," without using words. In that embrace, he is alert, present, and emotionally engaged. For many men, protection is one of the clearest ways they express love. While emotions may feel complicated to articulate, the desire to safeguard someone they care about feels natural. A protective hug reflects this instinct in its purest form. His body positions itself almost automatically, placing you closer to his chest, sometimes angling slightly forward, as if shielding you from the outside world. This isn't something most men plan, it's something they feel. There is also a sense of grounding in a protective hug. When a man holds you in this way, his stillness can be calming. He isn't fidgeting or distracted. His arms are solid, his breathing steady. That steadiness often mirrors his emotional state toward you. It suggests that with you, he feels balanced rather than anxious. He is not overwhelmed by closeness. Instead, closeness brings him clarity. A protective hug can also surface during moments of vulnerability. If you're tired, overwhelmed, or quiet, this kind of embrace becomes a form of emotional reassurance. He may not know exactly what to say, but his body responds by offering safety. In those moments, the hug becomes a silent promise that you don't have to face everything alone. It's not about fixing your problems, it's about standing with you while you carry them. What makes protective hugs meaningful is the absence of expectation. He isn't hugging you to get something in return. There's no urgency, no demand, no hidden agenda. The hug exists for its own sake. That lack of pressure is often what makes it feel so genuine. You're not being pulled in or held too tightly, you're being supported. Consistency matters here as well. A protective hug that shows up only occasionally may reflect mood or circumstance. But when it becomes part of how he naturally connects with you, it reveals something deeper. It shows that caring for your emotional and physical comfort is part of how he relates to you, not just how he behaves in special moments. A protective hug is also an expression of respect. He is attentive to your boundaries, aware of your comfort, and responsive to your presence. His arms don't overwhelm, they reassure. That balance is important. It indicates emotional maturity, the ability to be strong without being forceful, close without being invasive. In the end, a protective hug is less about dominance and more about devotion. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, steady, and sincere. It reveals a man who feels connected, responsible, and emotionally invested. And often, in that silent embrace, you can feel something rare and powerful, the sense that, for that moment, you are truly safe with him. Rushed or distant hugs often leave you with a strange feeling afterward, one that's difficult to explain but impossible to ignore. It's not that the hug is cold or unfriendly, it's that it feels incomplete, like something ended before it had a chance to begin. In those brief moments, the body moves, but the heart stays guarded, and that disconnect usually says more than the hug itself. When a man hugs quickly, with one arm or minimal contact, it's often a sign that part of him is elsewhere. His body may be present, but his emotions are still deciding how close they're willing to come. This doesn't always mean a lack of care. Sometimes it reflects uncertainty, distraction, or an internal conflict about how much intimacy feels safe at that point in time. Many men pull away from lingering physical closeness when they feel emotionally unsure. A distant hug can be a boundary they haven't yet learned how to express in words. Rather than saying, "I'm not ready," or "I don't know how I feel," the body creates space. The quick release becomes a way of maintaining control while still offering a gesture of connection. Rushed hugs can also appear when a man enjoys your company but hasn't decided to invest emotionally. He may like you, respect you, or feel comfortable around you, but something inside him is holding back. The hug reflects that hesitation. It's polite rather than intimate, functional rather than expressive. And while it may not be intentional, it can feel confusing for the person on the receiving end. Sometimes a distant hug is about self-protection. Emotional closeness can feel risky, especially for someone who has been hurt before or who struggles with vulnerability. Keeping the hug brief allows him to engage without fully exposing himself. It's a compromise between wanting connection and fearing its consequences. Context matters as well. Stress, exhaustion, or external pressure can influence how someone shows up physically. A rushed hug doesn't always point to emotional unavailability. It may reflect a temporary state of overwhelm. However, when these hugs become a pattern rather than an exception, they start to tell a clearer story. Consistency reveals truth. If a man consistently offers quick, detached hugs, it often means emotional intimacy is not something he's prioritizing or fully comfortable with. His actions aren't cruel or dishonest. They're simply aligned with where he is emotionally. The hug mirrors his inner distance. It's important to understand that rushed hugs are rarely about the other person doing something wrong. They are not a rejection of worth or value. They are an expression of the giver's internal limits at that moment. Recognizing this can help prevent unnecessary self-doubt or overanalysis. A distant hug can also highlight a lack of presence. When someone is emotionally engaged, they tend to slow down, they linger. When they are preoccupied or unsure, everything becomes faster. The hug becomes a transition rather than a connection, a movement from one moment to the next. The key is not to judge a single hug in isolation, but to notice patterns over time. Emotional clarity doesn't come from one moment, it comes from repetition. If closeness consistently feels abbreviated, it may be an invitation to reassess expectations rather than wait for something to change. In the end, rushed or distant hugs are not inherently negative, but they are informative. They quietly reveal where emotional boundaries exist and how much intimacy feels safe for someone right now. And sometimes the most important insight isn't why the hug is brief, but whether that level of closeness is truly enough for you. Men often use physical closeness as a language when words feel insufficient or unsafe. While emotions may move deeply inside them, translating those feelings into clear sentences doesn't always come easily. Many men were raised in environments where expressing vulnerability verbally was discouraged or misunderstood. As a result, touch becomes one of the most natural and honest ways they communicate what they feel but cannot explain. When a man leans in, stays close, or seeks physical connection, it is often his way of saying that you matter to him. He may not know how to articulate affection, reassurance, or emotional attachment, but his body moves toward the person who makes him feel grounded. Physical closeness allows him to express care without having to risk saying the wrong thing or exposing emotions he doesn't fully understand himself. Touch can feel safer than conversation. Words can be questioned, analyzed, or misunderstood, but physical presence speaks directly to the nervous system. For many men, closeness provides relief from emotional pressure. It allows them to feel connected without needing to define the connection. A hug, a hand on the shoulder, or sitting close becomes a quiet declaration of trust. This is especially true during moments of emotional conflict or uncertainty. When a man feels overwhelmed, confused, or unsure how to respond, he may withdraw verbally but remain physically present. He might not say much, but he stays. That staying is significant. It reflects an internal desire to support and connect, even if he cannot yet articulate what he's feeling. Physical closeness can also act as a bridge between emotional awareness and expression. Some men only recognize what they feel once they are near the person they care about. The physical sensation of closeness can help them access emotions that remain distant when they are alone. In that way, touch becomes not just communication, but discovery. However, this form of expression can sometimes lead to misunderstanding. When emotional clarity is expressed through physical closeness alone, the other person may long for verbal reassurance that doesn't come. This gap can create confusion, even when the intention is genuine. Understanding this difference in communication styles is essential. It allows you to recognize emotional effort without dismissing your own needs for clarity. Physical closeness does not always equal emotional readiness. A man may feel deeply but still struggle to name or commit to those feelings. His touch may reflect attachment, comfort, or affection, even while his words lag behind. This doesn't mean his feelings are false. It means they are still forming. There is also vulnerability in physical closeness. Allowing someone near requires trust. Even without words, a man is exposing his emotional state through how he holds you, how long he stays, and whether he pulls away or remains present. His body often reveals what his mind is still sorting through. Consistency remains important. Physical closeness that appears only in certain moments may signal comfort without commitment. But when closeness shows up steadily, naturally, and respectfully, it often reflects a deeper emotional connection that exists even if it hasn't yet been spoken aloud. In the end, understanding that men often communicate feelings through physical closeness allows for greater compassion and clarity. It reminds us that emotional expression doesn't always follow the same path for everyone. Sometimes what cannot yet be said is still being deeply felt. And in those moments, the body speaks with honesty long before the words arrive. A meaningful hug is never about how it looks or how it's supposed to feel. It isn't something that's measured by intensity, drama, or timing. Instead, it is defined by presence. When someone is truly present, their body is relaxed, their attention is focused, and there is no sense of rushing toward the next moment. The hug exists fully in the now, not as an act, but as a shared experience. Performance is about impression. Presence is about connection. When a hug is performative, it often feels exaggerated or mechanical, as if the person is playing a role rather than responding authentically. There may be tightness without warmth, closeness without calm. In contrast, a meaningful hug feels effortless. It doesn't try to prove anything. It simply allows two people to meet in a moment of honesty. Presence shows up in small details. The way breathing slows, the way the body softens instead of stiffening, the absence of distraction. A present hug doesn't check the time or scan the room. It doesn't rush to begin or end. It unfolds naturally, guided by how both people feel rather than how the moment should appear. When someone is fully present in a hug, there is no urgency to impress or to extract a reaction. There is no pressure for it to lead somewhere else. The hug is complete on its own. That completeness is what makes it feel safe. It communicates, I'm here with you, not for what comes next, but for this moment exactly as it is. A performative hug, on the other hand, often carries an agenda. It may be used to smooth over tension, to appear affectionate, or to meet an expectation. Even when it's warm, it can feel hollow because the intention is external rather than internal. It's done for effect, not connection. And the body senses that difference immediately. Meaningful hugs often happen when someone lets their guard down. Presence requires vulnerability. It asks a person to slow their inner world enough to feel what's actually happening. That slowing down is difficult for many people, especially in a culture that rewards speed and efficiency. But when it happens, the result is powerful. The hug becomes grounding rather than stimulating, calming rather than confusing. There is also honesty in a present hug. It doesn't exaggerate feelings or hide them. It reflects exactly what is there, no more and no less. If the emotion is gentle, the hug is gentle. If it's steady, the hug feels grounded. This alignment between inner state and outer expression is what makes presence feel real. A meaningful hug also respects boundaries. Presence includes awareness of the other person's comfort. It listens without words, it adjusts naturally. That attentiveness creates trust because it shows care without force. There is no need to hold on too tightly or let go too quickly. The moment finds its own rhythm. Over time, presence becomes recognizable. You begin to feel the difference between someone who is showing up fully and someone who is simply going through the motions. The former leaves you feeling seen and settled. The latter often leaves you questioning, even if the gesture seemed affectionate on the surface. In the end, a meaningful hug doesn't ask to be interpreted. It doesn't demand analysis. It leaves clarity instead of confusion. That clarity comes from presence, because when someone is truly there with you, their hug doesn't perform connection. It becomes connection. Consistency reveals truth in a way intensity never can. A single powerful hug can feel unforgettable, but it is repetition that shows intention. When a man hugs you in a similar way over time, steady, warm, and present, it creates a pattern that speaks louder than any dramatic moment. That pattern tells you not how strongly he can feel once, but how reliably he chooses to show up. An intense hug can happen for many reasons. It can be driven by emotion, longing, nostalgia, or even the fear of losing something. In those moments, the intensity feels meaningful because it is charged with feeling. But intensity is often reactive. It responds to a moment, a mood, or a situation. Consistency, on the other hand, reflects character. It shows how someone behaves when emotions are not running high. When a man's hugs are consistent, they offer a sense of emotional stability. You begin to know what to expect, not because he is predictable in a boring way, but because he is dependable in how he expresses care. That dependability builds trust. It allows your nervous system to relax instead of constantly searching for signals. You stop wondering what today's hug means, because the message has already been made clear through repetition. Consistency also removes confusion. One intense hug followed by emotional distance can leave you questioning everything. Was it real? Was it just the moment? When affection appears only in bursts, it can feel intoxicating but unsettling. You're left chasing the memory of how it felt rather than experiencing how it continues. Consistent hugs, even if they are softer or quieter, create a clearer emotional environment. There is comfort in knowing that closeness is not conditional. When a man hugs you the same way regardless of stress, distraction, or mood, it suggests that his care is integrated into who he is, not dependent on how he feels in the moment. That reliability matters far more than occasional intensity, because it shows emotional availability rather than emotional volatility. Consistency does not mean lack of passion. It means that passion is grounded. It shows that his connection to you isn't fueled by extremes, but by choice. Each hug becomes a reaffirmation, not a surprise. That steady presence communicates commitment more effectively than any dramatic display ever could. Over time, consistent physical affection also deepens emotional intimacy. Repeated moments of safe closeness build a shared language. The hug becomes familiar, not dull. Familiarity brings trust, and trust allows both people to relax into themselves. That relaxation is where real connection grows. Intensity can be impressive, but it is not sustainable on its own. Relationships don't survive on peaks, they survive on rhythm. A man who can offer you steady, meaningful closeness over time is showing you how he relates when things are ordinary, not just when they are emotional. And ordinary moments make up most of life. It's important to remember that consistency also reflects respect. It shows that he is mindful of how his actions affect you. He isn't creating emotional highs and lows through unpredictable behavior. Instead, he is offering something stable that you can rely on. In the end, a single intense hug might stay in your memory, but consistent hugs shape your experience. They quietly answer the questions intensity leaves behind. They show you where you stand without forcing you to guess. And that quiet clarity is often the strongest form of emotional reassurance there is.